So in this video, we will be discussing about the fate of the carbohydrate end product, that is the glucose. What happens when the glucose enters into the cells? So we know that in the first introduction part, we discussed the body for sustenance needs energy, and the energy can be obtained from food. So first we discussed how the body acquires the food. So now we will be discussing how the body gets the energy. So the energy providing molecule from the lower classes, you have studied that the energy providing molecule is always carbohydrate. So which food provides the energy? You know that it is carbohydrate. So energy giving food and body building food. So this type of chapters you have, or in this type of studies you have done in the lower classes. So energy provided is always from the carbohydrate source. Now when the glucose is formed from the food what we ate, or in the digestive system, when the carbohydrate is converted into the end product, that is the glucose, then the glucose will be provided to each and every cell of our body or any higher organism's body, and then that will be converted into certain biochemicals or certain biomolecules, and they will be in that process we will be getting the energy also. So let us see how the respiration process provides us the energy to perform our work. So respiration, also known as the cellular respiration, because it takes place in the cellular level in each and every cell of our body. Clear? So that is the reason it is called as the cellular respiration. Now how the glucose is oxidized and what it produces so that we are getting energy. Clear? So in certain organisms, what happens? The oxidation process, or the glucose breaking down does not require the oxygen, and in certain organisms the breaking down of glucose needs the presence of oxygen. Most of the higher organisms, they require the oxygen to break down the glucose, and many lower organisms, they do not require the oxygen for breaking down of glucose. So with the use of or the requirement of oxygen in the process of cellular respiration, it is divided into two categories. Now what are the two categories? The cellular respiration, one is the aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. Clear? Okay. Aerobic respiration, where it needs the requires O2 for the breakdown of glucose. Okay, and doesn't require the O2 for glucose breakdown. So this is the major difference between the aerobic and anaerobic respiration. Clear? So one requires the oxygen for breaking down the glucose, the other does not need the oxygen. So presence of oxygen is not required for anaerobic organisms. So we can write the examples. Examples are yeast, some bacteria, okay, etc. Yeast, some bacteria, etc. Now here we can write mammals, plants, then other vertebrates. Instead of that we can write most animals. Instead of mammals, all those names, we can write most animals. Okay, almost all animals, they require oxygen. Plants, right, and many other higher fungus, they all need the presence of oxygen for breaking down of glucose. Now let us see what are the subcategories for this aerobic and anaerobic respiration. So aerobic respiration, only one type is there, that is presence of oxygen. In anaerobic oxygen respiration, one is fermentation, that is alcoholic fermentation, and the other one is lactic acid fermentation. Okay, so both are termed as fermentation process. One is called as the alcoholic fermentation, the other is called as the lactic acid fermentation. Now the alcoholic fermentation means the end product is alcohol in this procedure, and here the end product is lactic acid. When this anaerobic respiration happens, the final product will be aerobic and the final product will be the lactic acid. Clear? Okay, so this happens in absence of oxygen. This happens when there is less amount, so we can write lack of oxygen. So when lactic acid fermentation will take place? When there is lack of oxygen. Lack of oxygen does not mean there is absence of oxygen. There is oxygen, but the oxygen is not in good amount. The oxygen concentration is not enough for completing the normal aerobic respiration. So in such cases, the lactic acid fermentation will take place. So here, this alcoholic fermentation, we can write the yeast, the bacteria. These examples we can write here in the alcoholic fermentation. But in lactic acid fermentation, what happens? The examples are muscle cells of animals. Okay, muscle cells of animals. The example where lactic acid fermentation takes place is the muscle cells of the animals. So now let us see what are the different pathways that glucose follows to complete whether the respiration is aerobic type or the respiration is anaerobic type. So let us just find out the different pathways, how the glucose is completing or the glucose breakdown is completed in different pathways, right? So let us write the pathways of glucose breakdown. Okay, the pathway of glucose breakdown. Now in the first case, so first what happens when the glucose enters into the cell, the breaking down starts in the cytoplasm. We know that there are three different regions in the cell. First the plasma membrane is there, then the cytoplasm, then inside that a dense part is there which is known as the nucleus, right? So what happens once the glucose enters into the cell inside the cytoplasm, few procedures or few biochemical reactions that take place and glucose is converted into another product, right? So that we will be writing here. So glucose, when in the cytoplasm, right, in the cytoplasm is converted into pyruvate, okay, or it is also known as the pyruvic acid. Clear? Okay. We know that glucose is a 6-carbon compound, right? So 6 carbon means we know it is C6H12O6. Clear? So it has 6 carbon atoms in the molecule. Now we will write here a 6-carbon compound. Okay. But when it is producing the pyruvate is a 3-carbon compound, right? And the process by which the glucose is converted into the pyruvate in the cytoplasm is known as glycolysis. Okay, it is known as glycolysis. So the process is glycolysis, right? So glycolysis is not a single step reaction. Clear? So when glucose is converted into the pyruvic acid, there are some around 8 to 9 steps or 8 to 9 reactions. Combinedly, those 8 to 9 reactions are termed as the process of glycolysis. Now glycolysis converts the glucose into the pyruvic acid or the pyruvate, and during that time some amount of energy is also produced. Conversion of glucose into the pyruvate produces little amount of energy in the cytoplasm. Now what is the amount of energy? We know that the energy is always expressed in the form of ATPs, the adenosine triphosphate. So the energy currency is, I will write here, the energy currency is ATP, right? So this is the energy currency, and what is the name for this? This is adenosine triphosphate. Okay, so this is called as the adenosine triphosphate. So this is the energy currency. So whenever the energy needs to be stored, the energy needs to be harnessed, so we are going to take the help of adenosine triphosphate. So it can be stored in only one way, that is formation of ATP molecules. Now let us see what happens. How many? So the energy means it is in the form of 2 ATP. So glycolysis produces pyruvate plus 2 molecules of ATP.